Good evening and welcome to episode 6 of Reading Between the Lineups, the show that gets to the person behind the Discord persona. As always, I'm your host, DRC, and we've got a really great show for you tonight. Of course, we've got our 30,000 perfect point giveaway that we'll do at the end of the interview. But the interview itself is really why you're here. And tonight, my guest is Pidge. While he's best known for his auction house activity and for his lively banter on the Discord, typically revolving around that auction house activity, he's also an avid competitor in this game, with multiple trips to the Perfect League and even an appearance in the Perfect League World Series. Lost in 7 games. Very competitive player, and as you'll learn in my interview with him, somewhat of a resident data scientist as well, doing a ton with data, doing a ton with experimenting to try to better learn and understand the mechanics of the game, all looking for that edge that's going to put him over the top. So we get into all of that and more, but first, as always, we start off reading between the lineups with a bit of hit and run. And tonight's hit and run segment, which is where I share my thoughts on recent news and discussion in the Out of the Park universe. This was really inspired by a comment I saw on the Discord. The comment was brought to us by Bronzy, who's a Glacier Grizzlies, and he said, "Hey, anyone know how to get back into this game? I've been in a slump a while, and I just have no interest. I want to have interest, but I don't." So first things first, we're 8 months into a game cycle. Like, what video game do you pick up and play 8 months and never have a lull? And it's just pedal to the metal the whole time. So this is entirely understandable, and I'm glad he posted this, because I think that at this point in the game cycle, there's probably more than a handful of people feeling this way. There's probably more than a handful of people wondering what's next for them in this game and if it's time to pack it in. And so what I wanted to do was talk tonight about my take and my answer to this question. How would I respond to Bronzy? How would I respond to anyone out there who feels similarly to Bronzy? And the answer is going to be different for everyone, but I'll share my perspective. So what is one to do? It had me thinking, and really the best way that I could process this was to harken back to my own experience and my own journey in the game. And so let's take a look at that. What was my journey? Well, first I started, I opened my 6 original packs. I had the gusto to throw $5 into the game as well. I opened those packs, spent them on packs instead of buying players, like a true noob. And my first focus was really trying to get my main league team competitive. I wanted to rack up some win. Honestly, I was focused on wins in the entry pool. I wasn't focused on PP generation. Again, showing how little I knew about this game at the time. But I wanted to get wins in my entry pool, and then when I got placed in a rookie league, I wanted to get wins there. So for the first 2 or 3, maybe even 4 weeks, it was just about winning games. And I quickly realized that my ability to fund players, my ability to build a team that could consistently win ahead of those teams in my league that actually had real good players, was very limited. And so I said, well, there's got to be a way for me to accelerate the curve to add better pieces to my team. And that's when I decided to stop investing into that main league team, stop trying to put the pieces in place, and really focus on a tournament practice. And the tournament that I chose was bronze. And so all of my perfect point generation went to building out bronze tournaments, building out a bronze tournament roster that could compete, collecting bronze tournament data. This is really where I started my deep data analysis. Get all that bronze tournament data, figure out what the right team was, what the right mix was, experiment with different positions. I spent no less than a handful of hours trying to figure out what was more profitable, Kaz Metsui every day at second, or a platoon of Maury Rath and Fletcher. So definitely spending a lot of time and really all of my obsessive, and that'll be consistent theme as we go through this slide here, is that, I really go from one obsession to the next, and the bronze tournament at that time took all of my obsessive and compulsive powers at that point. From there, I got a good bronze tournament team going, and then I discovered that there was another way to juice my game economy, and that was flipping cards in the auction house. It started with silver lives. It then morphed into just opportunistic flipping. It morphed into whenever I saw someone on the Discord saying, hey, I want to sell this card. I'm flexible on price. Hey, I really need to move this. I've got something else I want to buy. Drop them a line. See if they're very flexible and very motivated, and really trying to supplement what I had built with my bronze tournament team, which my bronze tournament team, I tracked it for months, got well over 1.5 million perfect points in packs from that tournament team alone. And then really redirected that energy while I continued to spam bronze tourneys in the background, redirected that energy to auction house flipping. I would wager that I might be one of the league leaders in live silver flips. I would put my number of Jonathan Loasiga, or however you pronounce that name, I would put my number of Loasiga flips or Loasiga sales up against anyone else. And then from there, I moved into silver tourneys. I said, all right, bronze was fun. I've now got an auction house engine going, fueling me that way. Maybe I can improve on my bronze tournament win rate and go to silver, which I quickly found out was not the case. So I jumped in there. I wrestled with Wait Till Next Year. I wrestled with Sanji and a couple of the other stalwarts in the Sylvie tournament meta, and it didn't go nearly as planned. And it was probably one of my shorter obsessions in the game cycle. As Wait Till Next Year says in the chat, we too strong. And he was right. I was only able to get my silver win rates around 570, 575, which was less than my bronze win rates. And given that silver tourneys fired less frequently, the value prop wasn't there. So from there, I turned my focus to just surviving in DLL. At this point, I was in DLL. It was a very competitive diamond league, so I'm turning my focus to the main league. And I didn't have a team that could really keep up with the stalwarts that were in that league. So I was just trying to stave off relegation in a given week. If I catch that hot RNG, maybe even flirt with a playoff spot, but just kind of enjoying the banter with the other members of DLL, with Walnut, screwing around and having a good time, really focused on the main league. And then from there, all energy went into Face of the Franchise. Once we saw what it was going to be, once we saw how it was going to play out, once we saw how important it was going to be to do it, I redirected all of my energy. I even sold off probably 20 to 30% of my main league team to fund the speculation and pre-buying of Face of the Franchise. And I did this because I thought it was a way I could skip a step. So I looked at all the other teams in the DLL. They were all better than mine. And they had players like Maze, not Face of the Franchise Maze, but 100 Maze. They had players like Oscar Charleston. They had players like Maddox 100. And so I thought if I did the specking of the Face of the Franchise, I might be able to leapfrog those steps to then be on even footing once everyone had Face of the Franchise done. And it turned out to be true in some respects. Like, I didn't ever have to do SE Bench because Pudge and Campanella came out, rendering SE Bench not needed. So after Face of the Franchise was done, I said, okay, now I've got a team. Now I can win. Now I can have some fun. And so I turned all of my energy into competing in the DLL and trying to find a way to win that league, and was lucky enough to do so. Beat Doc in 7 games. It was incredible. And then from there, it was just grinding in Perfect League. So I had been to Perfect League once with a lucky DLL title that happened during my Face of the Franchise spec. Didn't belong there. Knew I was going to get crushed. Knew I was going to get bumped out. So that happened right around this time period. But when I made it the second time, I said, okay, maybe I can hang around here. Maybe I can make some noise. And so all of my energy and effort went into building a game plan for each day, pseudoing my starters to make myself competitive and get my pitchers in the most competitive situation, figuring out how to extract data on a daily basis, to understand the trends in the league and understand that given season's meta, if you will. And it worked out. And I was lucky enough to make the World Series twice and win it once. And that was an absolutely amazing accomplishment. And then from there, I've really been focusing most of my attention into streaming, into talking with you guys, into hanging out with you guys, into doing shows like this. And so this has been my journey. It's been awesome. This is the most fun game I've ever played. This is the most rewarding community I've ever been a part of. It's been awesome, and I hope that everyone else gets that same level of satisfaction and enjoyment out of it. But again, everyone's journey is different. And so as we look to answer Bronzy's original question, I want to have interest, but I don't. Well, what can you do? Out of the Park, at its core, is a choose your own adventure. So what is your next chapter, if you feel like Bronzy? There are almost limitless directions. You could build a theme team. We see tons of theme teams all over the place. You could build and invest into a theme team, see how far you can take them, see where their ceiling is. Play a new tournament type. I went from bronze to silver, found out that the grass wasn't greener on the other side. Maybe you can do the same thing. Maybe do a bronze cap. Maybe do an SE Open. Maybe just do open tournaments in general. Maybe focus all of your attention on winning the highly sought after special edition cards that are up for grabs. Get into data analysis. Maybe you've gotten to this point in the game cycle and you've never done it. You've always relied on either others to do it or to share insights with you, or you just look at the back of your card stats, or you just look at your season to season player statistics. Maybe this is not a bad idea to get into it now, ahead of PT 22. Maybe roll out a unique strategy for your main. This week, I am rolling 3 full-time pseudos in DLL just to see what happens. I mean, it's definitely for competition. I'm trying to win for sure, but I'm just more curious to see the impacts on a bullpen when 3/5 of your rotation is pitching to 3 batters and having fun that way. So maybe deploy something weird on your main. Do all stolen bases. Go all homers. Go all 3 true outcomes. Careful with that one. That one got Free Dave relegated one season in the DLL. Join or form a friends group. We all know and have heard of the friends groups that are out there. They exist because they're an amplifier of the fun within this game. If you're not part of one, or if you want to join another, that's another way that you can really feed your interest into this game. Or you can just get desperate. Sell it all and rip them packs. Sell every card you've got. Rip packs until you can't rip anymore. And if you don't like what you see, walk off a winner. That's the shifted play. And Walnut, Mac, and Shifted, thanks for the support in the chat. Appreciate it, guys. And then, if that doesn't work it for you, or if you've sold it all, you've ripped all them packs, and now your perfect team stinks, and you don't have any interest in it, play the base game. I'll be honest, I haven't played the base game like at all this season. Maybe there's an adventure waiting for you there that you'd enjoy. And last but certainly not least, you could be the next great troll on Discord. We're always working through various levels of inventory of trolling on Discord, and I feel like we're at a somewhat of a trough right now. We don't have as many trolls actively lurking on the in Dishnet's playground here on the Discord. We don't have that many trolls right now. Maybe you can be that next great one. Maybe that can be fun for you. At the end of the day, though, just don't forget to have fun. And if you do all this, or if none of this sounds interesting, then maybe you truly are at the end of your line with this game. And that's fine. You've been here for 8 long months. PT 22 is around the corner. If you see this discussion point, you see all these bullets here, and you still just don't have it, walk away. Go play Among Us. Play Overwatch. And then hopefully we'll see you back in Perfect Team 22. With that said, and right before we get to Pidge, just a quick reminder on the program schedule. So Thursdays we do This Week in Perfect Team, Excited to do that with kidneys in a couple days from now. Sundays, we're doing the DLL World Series. So I'm not in the Perfect League anymore, which means, one, I don't get to broadcast it, and two, I get to do the DLL World Series instead, which was a ton of fun last week, and three, I get to go on an hour earlier because that World Series starts sooner. So I get to be done for the night a little earlier, so that's a win for everyone as well. And then on Tuesdays, we have this show that you're watching now, and I will have the announcement of next week's guest at the end of this stream. All right, guys, I will be right back with Mr. Pidge. Joining me tonight is Mr. Pidge, the one and only Pidge. Auction house savant, perfect league competitor, nearly perfect league champion as of a couple weeks ago. Pidge, how are we doing tonight?
Doing awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, glad to have you. So we'll jump right in and we'll start with some basics. So who is the man, the mystery behind the handle Pidge?
Just a guy from Texas, really. Always loved baseball, played a little ball in my day, and had always kind of tried to stay away from this because I knew it would be a time vampire for me. COVID happened, and here I am.
Yep, it's certainly been a time vampire for a lot of us. And as far as what you could be wasting your time on, what I shouldn't say wasting, investing your time in, I think that most people as deep as you or I into this game would feel as though it's better than a lot of what could be the competing priorities. So is this your first year on the park?
It is. Yeah, I actually came late. I joined whatever 2027 is, so mid-May, I think.
Mm-hmm. And so you jumped in mid-May, and how quickly did you figure out that the auction house was going to be your playground?
A buddy told me that they had an auction house, and that's what got me to get on here in the first place. I really enjoyed playing the auction house on the Madden games, and it was always just kind of so. For me, I like having some background noise in my life. So when I have things to do, having a background noise is actually really beneficial for me. And auction houses are a really good way to kind of occupy yourself without being able or being unable to do what you're supposed to be doing at the same time.
Right. So kind of that passive interest, which isn't ever going to steal you away for hours on end, but at any given moment when you want to just get a quick hit of dopamine or a quick interest follow-up, it's there and ready for you.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So what you mentioned Madden, and I'm guessing that's Madden Ultimate Team that we're talking about here. But besides Madden, what other real-life or video game experiences do you draw upon when formulating your opinions and or investment strategies?
So I don't really think there's a whole lot of IRL or even other in-game auction house or investment strategy things that are really applicable to this one. I think some of the principles are the same, like across all of it, but really, I mean, that's what I operate more off of is just, okay, well, I understand how certain principles work, so they should work here as well. So it's not really anything that I do in another game or in real life. It's how things should be, so I can kind of see how it should be on the game as well.
Do you actively play the stock market as well? IRL?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'm an options guy. I mean, I'll mess around with anything, but options are fun. Options are awesome. So I spend way too much time messing with that.
For sure. That's what I was kind of getting towards. I figured that someone who gravitated towards that modality of out of the park had to have had that itch scratched in some other form or fashion. So whether that was going really deep on MUT or being a huge player of the stock market, I figured there had to be something there. So that doesn't surprise me too much.
Yeah, you're spot on there. Yeah.
So in looking at how you've used the auction house this year, what is your single favorite play that you've done and why?
Ooh. Um, so we were actually in a chat where we were all kind of talking about how we were going to approach this FOTF. And, I thought there were a lot of good ideas bandied around that group. But it just seemed so scattershot. I think I came to a point where I jumped back in the room and said, I'm just going to buy everything. If it's cheap, I'm buying it. Period. No questions asked. And, we saw how FOTF worked out, and obviously that strategy worked out. It was a terrible strategy. You don't, I don't think you ever want to say, oh yeah, we're just going to scattershot it all and actually think you're going to wind up okay. I was kind of hoping to hit something in there, and well, we saw what happened. So yeah, that one was probably my best. I guess my favorite was also within FOTF, understanding that there was absolutely no way that the rest of the missions were going to be as tough as the first one. So we definitely did some investing in that first series, I guess, or first release of the FOTFs, and those definitely worked out about as we expected. Now, I did brick Marlins and Diamondbacks, Tampa Golds, things like that, because I didn't think anything would rival what KC and really San Diego, those two would, and I was very wrong about that, but got my claws into those fairly early, so that was nice.
So how did you serve the multiple masters concurrently? So Face of the Franchise 1 drops, you come up with your scattershot strategy of having to cover the board for the rest of the teams to come, but then you also recognized that you wanted to invest heavily into the Padres and the Royals. So how did you go about managing your stack across your accounts to accomplish both of those goals?
So by the time I was done with the original spec, by the time we were beyond, okay, FOTF 1 is dropping tonight, had my entire role into FOTF in general. And one of the things I was kind of telling people I was like, those FOTF diamonds for the teams that didn't come out the first week were going for 25 all week that first week. And I'm sitting here thinking, there's no way this is sustainable. So it actually came pretty much in that 1 week. And yeah, I definitely had some bricks in there because, anything that was the tough Pittsburgh Pirates one, I can't remember exactly what it is. Might be the post 40s or the peaks,
Sure.
or anyways, whichever one was, kind of the tougher one. I was giving those away for 25K back then as well. But I held on to everything that was FOTF 1, and I really just started dumping into FOTF 1 at that point, along with Rockies, Mariners, Diamondbacks, all the rare teams that they didn't work out so great. But yeah, no, after the first drop, I divested all the way from every diamond I had in my pocket because I figured they'd get cheaper at some point or another.
What was your Face of the Franchise strategy for the Rays, and did that end up being a brick or a big win for you?
I didn't really have one. I didn't go real heavily on the Rays, and when they first dropped, the 20 or so that I did have, they were getting out there immediately. I missed how rare those golds actually were, I guess, because I was nowhere close to that. Night one, I was ready to dump them for 25 or 30, thinking, okay, I'm going to get these things back for 10 or 15 at some point. Well, we know how that story ended.
Yeah, so you weren't heavy on Zobrist at that point in time?
I was not. I kind of had some conflicting views there because I had heard Chris and I had heard Chris say, hey, we're trying to prevent bottlenecks, and I'm sitting here seeing one team with it's one perfect and one diamond, right? So um, I didn't really think that there was any way they were going to make that, even if it was an either or situation, talk about a bottleneck.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't think that. I did kind of begin to wonder. Someone had mentioned the Ross Young's bottleneck to me, and I was like, well, yeah, I could see them, maybe like having 85 plus or something. And then I went and started doing the math, and I was like, okay, well, there are fewer. But when you actually look at the diamonds, like 85 plus, there would be enough of those for like almost the lower grade Tampa Bay Golds to be the ones that would then be the trouble. And
Mm-hmm.
you just didn't want to mess with it at that point.
So you just kind of offered a brief little snippet into your process. You mentioned that you did the math on something and then came to the decision that you felt was ultimately the right move. So walk us into that process a little bit. Obviously, a lot of people that play this game don't really have the appetite to or the inclination to get into the auction house. So how about you just share a little bit of your process about how you go about assigning values and assigning numbers and trying to do your best to predict things that are likely to come downstream.
Oh boy. Okay. So I'll start off just on Thursday night. Chris adds everybody in Discord. The missions are live. The very first thing I do, and I guess this doesn't apply to spec, but as soon as we know a mission, I go in there and I just analyze the mission. I look at how many cards are available. Shout out to the kidney sheet because at that time that's all we had to know exactly how many of each cards we had in every location. We had to do a little bit of legwork on our end to make sure that we could determine, the rate values and things like that. But by and large, using that sheet to determine how many of each section of those missions that were going to need to happen and how many cards for each of those sections there were, and then as dumb as it sounds, using the the stated drop rates in the packs on how prevalently you expected them to be in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that was a chore, but it seems to have somewhat worked out. So not really disappointed.
Yeah. And so
A
that
lot of
kind of
legwork though. Sorry.
I'm sure. I'm sure. That kind of brings me to my next question, and maybe it's the same answer, maybe it's something different. But in general, how are you able to predict market value trends for cards? Whether we're in a relatively stable market like we are now, where all the disruption of the face of the franchise is behind us, and we're now getting things like the SE Bogs market popping up or the playoff market that popped up. But just in general, how are you able to predict and foresee market value trends for cards?
The ghetto Dow, I guess, is what we're talking about, right?
Tell us what the ghetto Dow is.
Okay. Something I was messing around with a couple of guys in one of my chats about, and we should really be able to kind of index what a market looks like on a given day, based on one anything that has components like mission cards. So we would go and look at, and I say we a whole lot in this. What I do isn't just a me thing. I mean, there's a group of people that help me with this, and we're very interactive with one another. We're very open with one another about what we're looking for. But we came up with this idea that we would have a component sector of an index, and we would have a packable sector of an index. And each day, every one of us would have a certain number of cards that we had to go and look up. The component people, they'd be going and looking at specific missions that we thought would be very indicative of how the market was playing at a given time. It was usually not brand new missions, not super old missions. It was that right in the middle of the road mission. Something that had been out about 2 weeks or so. Because you would expect a bunch of cards to be locked in a pretty short period of time there. And then we'd have someone looking at the components or someone looking at the packable cards as well, and just basically writing down what the cost was in a given day. We had 122 total that we were using as our ghetto Dow. And it actually, we kind of thought it was stupid, right? And it sounds absolutely ridiculous. But it was a pretty good beacon as to which way a pretty good bellwether as to which way the market was going to turn around the times that we could kind of see it coming. And what really was a very interesting development for all of us was we probably had a 5 or 6 day head start on a downswing because we started noticing there were almost indicators within the market of when we would start to see a creep down. Get too deep into it, but it had a lot less to do with the very highest end of the cards and a lot more to do with who was buying in the mid market, not buying, at the time Randy Johnson, but who's buying Jerry Royce. And again, it had a lot more success than I think any of us had imagined. And we've tried to autopsy why it's that way, and we don't know.
Yeah, that's really interesting. As with any market, theories are a whole lot more abound than there are conclusive laws of that market, and oftentimes it's anyone's guess as to the various factors at play or the cacophony of factors at play that is really driving the market to be what it is. But I find the practice of having the ghetto down, I don't find that to be silly at all. I find that to be really interesting. And if there are a way to automate that, if there are a way to post that, I think that would be interesting to see where it's going. And obviously, if that's a competitive edge, then that's not something that you would want to or be inclined to do so. And I don't fault anyone for looking for competitive edges, but I think that the practice itself is more interesting than dumb, as you termed it.
All right, I'll take it.
So we've talked about your face of the franchise big play that was a win. I think you've alluded to a couple of flops or a couple bricks, as you put it. But what was your biggest brick this year, and why didn't it work out?
There were two. I guess a 1 and a 1A. The first one was team of the decade. I had an idea. So I actually started this game very anti-spec. And come team of the decade time was about the time I was like, the only people that are really upset with these people that are specking are the people that are just going to buy all the cards anyways. It's not the pack rippers. It's not the every other people. It's the people that are going to buy the cards no matter what. And I released a list telling people who I thought was going to be in the 40s, 30s, 20s. That's a wild guess, but I literally screenshotted a piece of paper and said, hey, go get these guys before it goes crazy. And by the time we got to when Chris released it, the prices were actually very reasonable. I was like, okay, that's pretty awesome. Now I'm going to not do it for a week and see what happens, because I thought that toppers were coming behind the last ones, whatever ended with the cap card. I thought we'd get toppers there. Just Jackie. I guess I can only point to Jackie that I thought, and it made sense. It made sense that we were going to get a TOTD topper. But we didn't. I spec'd pretty heavily into a Bobby Matthews card that was, I think it was still around 100K back then. It didn't go anywhere, and you're paying 10K tax on every one of these Bobby Matthews cards. I spec'd on a couple of the cheaper ones as well. I actually thought that seeing how relevant Bobby Matthews was, people would, okay, you know what, I'll justify spending another 30 or 40 to get this cap and lock this Bobby Matthews. That did not turn out to be the case. And yeah, there actually is no 1B. That was by far the worst. I think I was sitting on like 7 Bobby Matthews. And, even I was able to flip most of them right around what I got them. You're still out 100K on tax alone when you're paying 13 or 14 in tax. So that was a bad one.
And I think the other thing The other thing that
But
people need to keep in mind when we're talking about market plays is aside from just the raw ROI, I bought it for this, I sold it for that, take the tax out, you need to think about opportunity cost and time. And so you have a finite set of perfect points, and insert your credit card joke here, but you have a number of bullets, so to speak. And
yeah,
as you deploy those, and however you want to deploy them, whether you're doing big plays like Bobby Matthews or flipping live silvers, you only have so many, and you can turn that stack over as many times as you can to effectively fuel your game economy. So if you buy
yeah,
7 Bobby Matthews and you come out more or less even, if it takes you 5 weeks to sell those 7, then that's an opportunity cost for you.
absolutely. And like you mentioned there, flipping your bankroll. I try to flip my bankroll as often as possible, and having tied up at the time, it's almost like $1 million. It was a little over 100. It was a lot. And tying it up over that much time for a guy that had tried to flip his bankroll daily. And back then, we're talking, I might have had I might have had 1.3, 1.4 million PP. So 2/3 of my stack is
Mm-hmm.
at least tied up into these Bobby Matthews. So yeah, no, that was certainly painful. And like you said, time value of PP, I guess. Not being able to flip that for that, week and a half's time, that really negatively impacted my stack going forward.
Absolutely. So, what were some of the smaller plays that you did during this game cycle? Just plays that maybe didn't have that much fanfare, weren't a lot of things that people were doing, maybe didn't even generate tons and tons of raw PP on a single transactional perspective, but maybe were more of volume plays.
Golds on missions that came out immediately. If you're buying, I know it sounds crazy, but Thursday's the best day to buy. You wait until everyone goes in and gets all of their pack rewards from doing those missions and just rips those suckers open, and you just watch the undercut game happen. And
Mm-hmm.
again, you've got that at that point, you've got that time to where you can kind of determine, okay, this is going to be a little less plentiful than, and usually it was higher end golds. I don't know why higher golds, but it was higher numbered golds, and just walking in and picking off everything that went below a certain number. And once,
Mm-hmm.
there were a couple of times, and I talked about it openly in the chat. I would throw bait cards out there on Thursday night, knowing that 15 or 16 people would try to get under it, and my card would never be bought.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, I don't understand the chase on Thursday, the race. I guess it's to get more packs to then turn around and get more packs. But Thursday was always a great buy day. And yeah, volume buying off the higher ended, the 88s, 89s, 87s, on missions on drop night were just amazing.
Do you think the reason that those cards specifically, those high rated golds specifically, were profitable is because when people are completing their collections and figuring out which cards they need, they're always starting from the bottom up? So on a given collection screen, it's going to list the 81 before it lists the 87. And if you only need 3 of them, you probably never even get to the 87.
I think that may have had something to do with it. That was actually something Deftone had mentioned to me that I wasn't sure about, until I kind of started looking at how I myself was doing my missions. I was like, oh my gosh, absolutely right about this. So yeah, I think there's some validity to what you're saying there.
So you've got a main team. You've got the Pigeon Town Pigeons. Do I have that correct?
Yes,
But you also have a number of alt accounts, and all of your
absolutely.
accounts are active in the auction house. Obviously, all of them have their own main league as well. Can you talk us through the purpose of your alt accounts and how you use them?
Absolutely. The alt accounts are used as basically research tools. Very active in gameplay where I will leave something set a certain way on team A, and the teams are almost always identical. I can't ever get to a position where the opponents will be identical without grouping them up. I have some concerns about grouping them up and the perception that might uh, lend, but teams are absolutely identical, and I toy with a lot of things. I toy with what happens if I pull defensive subs out of my lineup. I toy with how do I get more pinch hitters on the field and situations, because the AI just won't do it for me. Almost everything I do with the alts is for, as pathetic as it sounds, research purposes.
For
And they have
science.
for science, absolutely. And they have taught me a few things, a couple little tricks where I'm actually pretty confident that people aren't deploying these things that I have found just by having a number of teams that are exactly identical to one another and just changing one. You got a control, you got a variable, right? That we're actually doing science, and it's awful. Shouldn't have said that. That's going to be as bad as math when we're done. Um, but it's true, and I have figured out some things that I myself wouldn't have been able to figure out. Now I know other people had force benching my pitchers. I was not aware that was a thing. I know BFF had known about it for a while. I figured it out on my alt teams. Again, just jacking around and changing something that the rest of the teams aren't doing. As far as the auction house, my teams aren't actually involved on the auction house other than buying and selling the cards that are on the team. That was a pretty big misconception for a while because I have the same exact teams. So when I was trying to sell Greg Maddux, there would be 12 Greg Madduxes up on the market. And it was perceived that it was some kind of manipulation used to undercut myself, which just baffled me because everybody hates an undercutter, but they won't hate a person that won't undercut themselves. I always had mine up for robust prices because one of the things, it was basically all SE teams. I wouldn't do the missions to put them together. I'd just buy them off the auction house with $100 worth of seed money. And when I was finished using those guys, I would put them all on the auction house, all for the same price. And they all eventually, because at the time, those were actually desirable cards, and someone eventually would come along and grab one. And then I'd have, 9 instead of 8, 8 instead of 7, whatever it was. But there was actually never any fixing or manipulation. It was legit just me putting my teams up. It just happened to be the same exact team over and over and over.
So when you had in that moment 10, 11, 12, whatever it was, yogis up on the auction house, that was when you were done experimenting with yogis and you had moved on to a different catcher, and so that was just part of asset disposition at that point?
So no. No. When my teams would get up to gold, I would be left with the choice right then of getting my teeth kicked in at gold or selling off my entire team. And to me, the play was always to sell off my entire team because eventually, at some point in this game cycle, the cards will depreciate to the level where these teams that had no chance of competing at gold can someday compete at diamond or better. And you got to remember, these, other than setting it and forgetting it for the week and then going back in and looking at the data afterwards, I wouldn't touch. So, there wasn't going to be any micro strategy that would get me through. So when I'd get to gold, I'd sell the whole team off. And yeah, y'all see 8, 9 yogis up, and then the next team would come up the next week and you'd see, 9, 5, 3. Yeah, so you'd see 9 up one week, 5 up one week, 3 up one week, 4 up one week, and they'd just basically be doing the elevator. My understanding at the time was that selling off your team, not tanking. I still think that to be true. If it's not, then I guess I'm self-reporting here. So I'm hoping that's still the case. But yeah, that's all that was, and it definitely got a little blown out of proportion.
So walk me through that pacing one more time. So you get to gold, you can't compete there, and so you sell your entire team, and so now that team is a shell of itself, and it's a certainty to be relegated to silver. And then in silver the next week, you do what?
So what I was doing, because I didn't want to have Said, oh my gosh, this guy's got 900K. Yeah, his team sucks, but he's got 900K. I always thought that was really unfair. So the first time through, all the way up, when I got done, I'd buy a Tris, thinking, okay, 4 weeks later, when I'm going back the other way, Tris. And then the next time I'd go back up, I'd buy, a lot of times it was Roger Connor. Sometimes it was Jackie. It was something that I thought at that time, and gosh, I would feel so bad for a team trying to do this when we went through FOTF. But at the time, it was pretty solid because that Tris would also, he would perform to the point to where, even when my team wasn't doing great, I could still make a few PP on my way back down, and I owned a Tris. So that was always the plan, is just get up, buy the best investment I thought I could at the time. And there were just a couple of occasions when FOTF came out, I started buying rando diamonds. And those teams couldn't get back down, but it turned out to be worth it that they were stuck getting their teeth kicked in every week at gold, because while the team sucked, it was quite valuable by the time the FOTF pieces were needed. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, interesting. So you basically ride the PP wave up with your live SEs. You get to the point where you're going to break. You sell it off and then fall the way back down. With the proceeds from the sell-off, you buy a permanent piece and then repeat the process until you've got a sustainable team that can compete at gold and above.
And the first time you get really excited, you always go hitters first. I'm actually in a group that works now with just startups, like entry to rookie, and seeing how much we can make. I have to find better use of my time. But they think now you can do pitching. I still think hitting's the way to go. And, you'd get really excited because you'd get to a point to where no matter what, you couldn't get back down below iron, because you'd have a Tris, you'd have King Kelly. That's one I forgot. Oh, awesome. Tris, King Kelly, you got your Roger Connor, you got guys that you think are going to be in-game pieces for you. And yeah, you get to a point where, okay, I can't get back down to where I want to unless I sell these guys off. I don't want to do that yet. So let me go ahead and try to throw the cheapest pieces together. And that's when teams went from being lab rats as to strategy. What do I do with my sliders? To lab rats with actual statistics. I've messed around with the editor, but being able to put different pieces in there and seeing, like you guys talk about the bird, the trident, all that good stuff, being able to see that play out again on teams that are actually as identical as humanly possible, except for a few guys here and there. And it was actually a helpful experience. I think for the money and the fun, there's no better investment than buying. You're helping the game. You're actually helping the game economy. You're helping bring some money into the games, make the game better for next year. There's a whole lot of positives to having multiple licenses. I guess there's a certain crowd that isn't a big fan of the whole bunch of license thing, but I play this game to have fun. I hope they play this game to have fun, and if there's something that they can do to have more fun, then I'm all for them doing.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense. And I think that there was just a great mystery around what it is you were doing with all of these alts. What sequence of events could lead someone to have 10 Yogis or 10 Greg Maddux SEs up on the auction house. And when you see something that is so foreign or so strange, I think the inclination is to think that something might be afoot. And I think now that you've walked through your process here and really your ethos to managing those alt teams, I do think it's at least cleared up for me some.
Sweet. Okay.
So you mentioned healthy game economy as one of the benefits of buying additional licenses. In your opinion, in general, what are the key characteristics of a healthy game macro economy, and what would need to be done to sustain that throughout the game cycle?
Oh, big two-parter there. Okay. So one of the most important parts of having a healthy economy is just like the economy that we hope for, right? The people on the bottom will spend a bunch of money and help the people on the top, and the people in the middle kind of get to go both ways with each. Healthy economy is always going to have like some of those people nipping at lesser desirable cards than just what the whales want, and that's kind of where we are today, right? Is everyone wants just the whale cards. It's people are tripping over themselves to help people in roster strategy and advice, hoping that someone will buy their 40k Jerry Rug. A healthy economy is going to have component pieces have some kind of value for the rippers. The rippers, I don't think it's a secret. That is our economy. Our game goes as the rippers go. And there are a number of people outside of the rippers, but really everything starts with the rippers, because flippers, people that flip cards, they only exist because the rippers don't want to list cards. Even if there wasn't a 50 limit, they would not want to sit there all night and list and list and list and list and relist and relist and relist and relist. So that's where the flippers come in and say, hey, these rippers are putting these cards up super cheap. I'm just going to go buy them so they can get more cards back up so they can flip back into the economy. So I think that having cards that the rippers want is very important. I think that having a good mid-game economy is important. And the more licenses that we have that are chasing those 30, 40, 50K cards, those are very important. And new people, new blood in the game, the people that are using live silvers to go put together their Johnny or their Yogi and their Ichiro and their Maddox. Those are all important pieces, because the component pieces are really what helps drive the entire economy. And for your second part question, I think the easiest answer to that, and if there was like one thing that I could beg and pray as I look into my camera here that someone would hear, is please make your SEs part of missions next year. Because if the ending piece of the component piece becomes a component piece, it is very good for your economy. Cards will always be more desirable, and that would really help out everyone. It would help out basically all levels of the people playing the game, and it would help out OOTP, because everyone would be this much closer to finishing something they had to spend some PP on. It would also help out the rippers, because when they're pulling, who is it, 98 Bender, it's not a 20,000 PP card. It's a 50,000 PP card like it used to be, which helps them continue to circulate, continue to, as I call it, cannibalize their packs and put more stuff out into the marketplace for everyone else. Please don't come out day one and say SEs will not be part of any missions. Please. That's all I got. That's all I got.
So what you're arguing here, just so that people are clear and they understand, is that, for example, a card like SE Eddie Plank, which was the reward for the Oakland A's live card mission. That's a bad example because he was also the face of the franchise one. But pick, Greg Maddux, Yogi Berra, whatever, would then become, at some point down the road, a component piece to some other SE, to some other collection. And that you feel as though that would be a positive market force, which props up the market for the rippers, for the mid-level, for the low-level.
Absolutely. And if you just kind of walk through it yourself, like name one card that we have in the game that wouldn't be more valuable if the SE that it made was more valuable, or had even the opportunity for some potential value down the road.
So I think you stole a lot of the meat out of my next question, but I'll ask it anyway in case you have a different answer or you want to take it a different direction. But in general, what was your opinion of the collection missions that we had in PT21?
I thought the missions were good. I did. I understand that certain people have certain frustrations about not hard enough, too hard. I think that's going to be the case with almost every mission. I thought the missions were really good, all the way up to and including FOTF. I thought those were put together well. I thought that some of the missions were more fun and just very minimal upgradey kind of thing. So not everyone had to go spend like 300 real world dollars worth of PP on a card. I thought those were awesome. I have had a little bit of struggles with the last couple of missions. I don't think I've been real quiet about that either. I think the blend of the Boggs mission is what we could see that would be kind of fair and reasonable on both sides. Hey, you're going to need a new card as part of the component of the mission, but here's some old cards. The problem is we locked so many cards in on FOTF, and I think I said this in the chat the other day. OOTP is a business. They're here to make a buck. I mean, and that's got to be okay. We've got to be okay with that. And having new component pieces in, I think it's a good idea. It's a way to flesh more packs getting ripped, and I'm totally okay with that. I think where they might have missed a little bit with the Boggs is you've only got one. And looking at my numbers, I think we're like 46 Boggs is where I thought we would be. I'm actually taking a peek just real quick, but I think we're going to wind up somewhere in the neighborhood of 46 Boggs based on my guess. Had they done that one a little bit more like, there it is. Had they done that one a little bit more like postseason 1, 2, 3, I think that would have been a whole lot cooler. Still going to be, a 400 or 500 PP card, and a whole lot of people would be spending that 400 or 500,000 PP. Might have said 400 or 500 the first time, but yeah, I think having new cards be a part of the missions is totally okay. I just think that you really have to be careful there. You really have to kind of look at what your drop rates on those cards are going to be to determine, okay, well, is this mission going to be all that we thought it was going to be? But as Chris says, they're learning. So hopefully this will pay dividends in the long run.
So to be clear, is your assertion that because the playoff mission was so daunting and because you needed to pull a 99 Boggs and the pull rate on the Boggs is going to be what it's going to be and there won't be as much supply, is your assertion that people are more or less punting on those collections, which is thus not providing the market with the pack ripping, not providing the market with all of the underpinnings which allow it to be a healthier experience, or am I misinterpreting?
No, I think you're spot on, and I appreciate you giving the TLDRs for what I say. You being one of the people that is in some side chats with me, you realize how kind of everywhere I am with my thoughts. So I do appreciate that. No, I think you're spot on with that. I actually think we saw kind of a phenomenon with postseason 1, I want to say. I think the demand slipped so badly for postseason 1 that you saw the cards head for the toilet. Like these cards that for weeks, for a couple, I think until postseason 3 dropped, you were still 300K or so for any of those postseason 1 diamonds. And I think you can run out today and get them for if you're patient, 40K. I do. I think that the fact that so many people for so long in that mission said, you know what, just not going to do it. Buy a Condios, buy the Mo when he comes out, which is actually not going to work out for once. Are going back now and they're completing this mission, but because demand was so low for a long period of time, the cards don't have a whole lot of value. And that one kind of sucks for OOTP because, again, they're in the business here to make a buck or two, and they want people cycling PP through. And when the card that realistically should cost 100,000 PP today costs 40,000, that's not good for us, and it's not good for them.
And do you think that the effect that you're outlining there had anything or had a lot to do with the toppers that we ended up getting?
You ask the questions that get me in trouble. Yeah, I do. Short answer, yes. We can move on. Absolutely. I think that the toppers had everything to do with the lack of demand.
Just because people didn't see Ruth as a clear upgrade for DH or left field, and because Mariano is quote unquote just a reliever. Now, I think everyone agrees that the Mariano card is very interesting. We've seen some data early that is lower than expectations, and maybe that has something to do with his extreme ground ball profile. Maybe there's another explanation, but just because those two players weren't what people might have been expecting.
Absolutely. Uh, I think when you're asking someone to put in the kind of PP they are into one of these, that juice has to be worth the squeeze. I don't know what the overall cost of FOTF was, but I don't think anyone's going to argue that the juice was absolutely
Right.
worth the squeeze. The postseason missions for sure. I I struggle with that one. I think Mo's definitely a card you can win without. I think I saw one babe this year in perfect. So,
Mm-hmm.
I guess that tells a bit of the story there.
So, speaking of other things that you've openly voiced your displeasure about, we can talk about the out of the park developer Matt situation a bit here. So,
Okay.
how did that situation make you feel, and what really brought you to terms with it enough to put it aside and keep playing the game?
Brought me to terms with. I still am totally not cool with it. But I really, really, really like the game. I totally dig the game. I think the game's a blast. I do think that the act was like a isolated event that was, and definitely was. I don't have to say think here. It wasn't on any of their radar, any of the staff's radar that this was going on. So I think that's really what I came to terms with. Was like, hey, you know what? This is like an insider trading thing. It's not great. The reaction probably was less desirable, but really it was like a dude that just kind of misled some people. And that happens all the time. I mean, we're in 2020, baby. I can give you plenty of examples of times where that happens in the real world these days. So yeah, that's how I got past it. Just understanding that, hey, sometimes you get duped.
And the reason that I bring this up to you specifically here is because it mostly had an impact on the auction house, which, as I mentioned at the top, is really your playground. So I think that was probably part of why you had such a visceral response to it and such a public response to it. Now, what would you tell people that opted to leave the game at that point in time?
I would tell people that if you were having fun, and like, I look for other games out there. Other than Among Us, I'm not really digging anything else right now. So if you're having fun playing the game, you should probably come back and play the game. I don't think something like that's going to pop up again, and I can promise you the reaction of the staff is going to be markedly different. But at the same time, like, there's certain lines you don't cross, and if that's a certain line for somebody, I understand where you. For me, talking to Rich really made me kind of off on it. Yeah, I don't know. That's a weird one. Like even after all this time, that I was imperfect when that happened, playing, and a guy that I didn't get along with giving me a real hard time about not playing and get along swimmingly now for some strange reason. But yeah, no, that's a tough one. But yeah, come back. The market misses you. We need all the.
Oh, that's great. So, switching to a lighter topic here. I've mentioned a couple different times that, some people didn't sign up to play a market sim. They didn't sign up to do anything other than build a cool baseball team.
Yep.
But I personally, and this is me putting my own editorial comment in here, I personally think that some auction house activity, some auction house speculation, some auction house strategy is required to really build a game economy unless you want to keep going to the credit card. So, what's the best advice that you would give someone who currently does zero of this? No auction house specking, no flipping, no nothing. What's the best advice you could give them to either get them started or to convince them that it needs to be part of their PT22 strategy?
Understand what your goal is. Understand what's fun for you. Do you have to play the auction house to be competitive? No. You can be really, really good at tournaments and get all the SE. You can swipe your credit card a whole bunch of times and just buy all the cards that aren't tournament SEs. You could violate the terms of service in a couple different ways and get yourself P. But other than those three options, game altogether, the best way to build a team on here is to play the auction house. I get it. Some people didn't sign up for a market game. Great. Did you sign up for a pay to win game? Because if you did, then just swipe the credit card and pay to win. The one argument I don't quite understand, kind of relative to that, and we've discussed it in general a couple of times, is it's not a grind game. I can't grind to get my P up. Well, that's not true. The grind here is the market. There's not solos for you to do that, there's a whole lot of smart people in this game. How many of those smart people would be botting solos tomorrow if this? Mm-hmm. The grind here is the market house. And if that's not your jam for grinds, then I think you're limiting your option how you can be competitive. But if the goal of the game is not to be competitive, it doesn't matter. I mean, and even when you talk about being competitive, we've got 8 different levels. So what would I tell someone? I would, manage your goals. But if you want to be competitive in Perfect League, you got one of 4 choices. One of them's not legal. One of them costs a lot. One of them, you just got to be really, really good and really, really lucky. I just want to throw that in there. But also really, really good. And then, the other one's grind the auction house. Just going to have to do it.
Yeah, it makes sense. And it more or less mirrors my own thoughts on the matter. So changing gears here, aside from being extremely invested and extremely opinionated in the auction house, you also have, believe it or not, there's a baseball management component to this game, and you also have a very successful and competitive main league team. And in fact, we were just talking about that before we recorded here. You happen to win 105 games in this regular season in Perfect League before an unceremonious sweep exit in the playoffs. So where's your head at regarding your main league team and its current state?
Keep changing. I think one of the things when you get to Perfect League, I'm gonna put this down real quick. When you get to Perfect League, there are a number of things that you don't really see anywhere else. I guess you see it a little bit in DLL. You probably see it a little bit in DDL. Maybe a couple. I'm sure the BFF League does all of it. Now that I think about it, I'm sure you see it in a few places, but there are so many different strategical deployments. And one thing that I've kind of learned is, so I run lefty cheese 80-90% of the time. But I'm always willing to pivot if the game looks like there's a different meta, I guess, to use y'all's favorite word. If there's something that I could break into that meta with, I'm certainly open to it. I don't see a whole lot changing for me next week until they repatch or revert to the original pseudo. If they don't change it up again or change it back to the way pseudoing used to be, nothing will change for me. I think it's unfortunate, but as the game stands now, I can take the game out of a player's hands by deploying my pitchers in a certain way. And if that's how we're going to play this game, that's how I'm going to play the game. So, yeah, I'm not changing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that'll be a very popular answer, but this is what we have, right? And trying to win, like all the people that argue against market playing is, oh, we're playing a baseball game. We're playing a sim to win. Okay, well, we've done what we've done with the pseudo, and this is how I feel is my best win.
Mm-hmm.
So, I
So,
ain't the only one.
what do you spend more time doing? Applying your lessons learned to building and strategizing and microing your main league team, or fiddling around in the auction house?
I do very little fiddling around on the auction house is pretty much dead. Like I'll run through 10 minutes filters when I wake up and hop on the game and placement is in the morning. And then it used to be right before TWIPT would start. I'd fiddle around for 10 or 15. Before I go to bed, I'd filter around for 10 or 15 minutes. So, I'll probably spend 45 minutes a given day on the auction house now. And that's really just looking for things that I think may be undervalued based on how much that card is supposed to sell for, not what it's going to be in next, because I'm done with that. So that's a little bit of a shame. But no, I still spend a pretty good chunk of time on the team and working on strategies there. So it would easily at this point be working on my main team for sure.
So next, tell us about the projection system. And I don't know if that's even the right nomenclature for it, but it's got a fun acronym, and you can share it if you want.
Okay.
But I'm curious how you went about building that, and I'm curious how it has the ability to spit out things like, okay, it's telling me to start this guy and not that guy, and it's saying to do this in this situation and that in that situation. So some of the assertions that you've shared in some of our shared discords, I find to be very mature, and so I'm curious, really, what that's all about.
Okay. So we've shortened it. It's not actually an acronym because it's not words. It's just capital letters I came up with. We've shortened it to DIP. It used to be DIP and a swear word, but it's just DIP now. I started messing with that, I guess about 2 months ago. It was kind of like I guess it was more like a 4.1 of what I was doing with but then I was actually taking out in-game data and putting it into the model as it was happening. So I know that's an awful explanation. I would take the results of games. I would take the actual game logs of games and start parsing out what was occurring in the game itself. And from there, I went to, okay, what are the statistics that lead to these outcomes, dice rolls, whatever you want to call them. And from there, my model started telling that this is the person I want to play in this part. This person I want to play in lefty cheese part. This is the person I want to play in a righty cheese part. I want to play this person in a lefty cheese part because I'm facing David Price. I want to play person Y in a righty because I'm still facing David Price. It's kind of like your matchup analyzer with sequencing, if that makes sense. It's like going down the possible outcomes with your matchup analyzer and then sequencing them, if that makes any kind of sense.
No, it does. It does. Okay. I think it's a more evolved version of the matchup analyzer to be able to contextualize park, lineup, opponent, which is really underpinned by all of the data collection that you have.
Sweet. I'll take it.
All right, so I'm going to give you a huge gift right here. I'm going to give
Sweet.
you the ability to put together your perfect path to winning your first perfect league title. Who do you beat in the first round? Who do you take down in the second, third, and then who do you beat in the World Series?
I take you down in one,
Okay.
so it can be on the stream. And again, we've discussed a lot of stuff over the times now. So that one would mean a lot to me. I'd take out High Desert Ace in two, another super popular member of the Discord community, but a very knowledgeable guy, and for my money, one of the best doing it. And I'd take him down because it would be like a student beats the master kind of thing. It really, he was super helpful in a lot of this, even helping me start with the model stuff. He was very influential, to say the least.
Big decision. This is the World Series now. Think about it. Don't rush this one.
Oh, is this the World Series?
Right? No, it was me one and then HDA in two. So I'm sorry.
Okay.
We're just in three
All right.
now.
So, that's I either want to beat the pants off of someone I don't care for, or I want to go with T-Chuck. And I'm going to go with T-Chuck because I want to just go ahead and take my boys out at this point. Yep. T-Chuck's got to go, and I was so hoping for what happened today. I would take down API in the World Series.
Okay.
Yep. That's my dream.
All right. Well, you heard it here first. So it's Nomads, HDA, T-Chuck, and then API in the final. Unfortunately, as far as I know, only one of those folks are in the Perfect League next week.
Yeah.
So you might have to wait a bit for that.
We got some work to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. Okay. Next question for you. So what would you rather do? What would you prefer? Identifying and executing a brilliant auction house play yielding millions of perfect points, or winning that Perfect League World Series?
Millions of perfect points?
Millions. We'll put it at 3. 3 million.
3 million. So by next Sunday I can have 3 million perfect points, or I can win the ship next week?
Sure.
Give me the points.
Okay.
Give me the points. I feel like long term that's going to put me in a position to have more opportunity. And hey, I'd love to get one, but I'm already 2, 3, 4. I want to get past Matt. Come on, baby.
All
We
right,
got room
LeBron.
tonight.
Okay, LeBron. Let's slow down a second. So next I wanted to move on to really a segment about your theories and ideas. One thing that's always fascinated me about the way you play this game is how you're never short on ideas, and I think we've learned so far during this interview how you're testing and how you're observing some of these potential phenomena. So why don't you walk us through some of the theories and ideas that you've had about this game, and I'll throw out a couple of ideas that you've shared with me in the past. So one being that you don't want to start too fast.
Yeah.
Another being that it's not a bad idea to have suck sponges, or whatever terminology you used, where you have someone in your lineup that doesn't hit at all, which allows everyone else in your lineup to hit a little bit more. Why don't you walk us through some of your prevailing theories, if you're able to share them, and maybe share a couple theories that you've had at one point in time and have put to bed.
Okay.
And again, don't give away the golden goose here. If you've got
No.
something that's going to put you in the Perfect League World Series every year for the next 10, keep that one to yourself. But what you feel comfortable sharing, we'd love to hear it.
So I just want to caveat this. DRC, you and those guys get to hear, y'all get to hear the things that I say out loud without putting them through the dome. So yeah, you've heard some real nonsense. I do believe in starting slow. I strongly believe in starting slow. Did I start slow this year? No. Okay. Well, I caught every dice roll this year, so it's a bad year.
It's hard to win 105 starting slow.
Yeah, no kidding. I do believe in starting slow. I think that there are some underlying statistical data points that help you pull yourself out and get better rolls if you start slow. If your team is competitive and just not winning games, I think starting slow is very helpful. If you've got a non-competitive team, good luck to you. I really hope you roll hot for a week. But yeah, if you've got a competitive team, I think that is the way. In fact, since we're talking about other ones, we'll come back to the suck sponge. When I'm bad now, I stay bad. And it's one I was talking with our guy API about just the other day. If I get into a game where I get my teeth kicked in, I just go ahead and let my teeth stay kicked in the next game. So if you look on my schedule, a lot of times you'll see multiple double-digit blowouts, one behind the other. That is, my bullpen got blown out, and I'm refusing to replenish my bullpen, hoping I can catch a big run differential in the negative direction. I know it's dumb. I've told my buddies I know it's dumb, but I'm going to keep doing it until it stops working. I also think it helps because I generally carry a plus Pythag, and I think it kind of helps with that, kind of leveling it off to where, okay, my Pythag isn't as insane as it probably should be in certain situations. So yeah, that's the real pie in the sky one right now. I do believe in Suck Sponge. Truly believe in Suck Sponge. I'm going to go ahead and get real close to the television right now, or real close to the monitor right now, so I can give you a decent example.
Yeah, while you're looking that up, I mean, I can think of just throwing out Pudge VR, knowing that he's not going to hit anything. And really, you're replacing Maurer there, who might be around a league average bat. But just going ahead and accepting Pudge's suck in exchange for his great defense, and then the theoretical boost to those around him, right?
Yeah, letting Ricky bang out VR in the same scenario, having Ozzy on period. I mean, I do. One of the things I've kind of started moving towards, actually, which I guess is pretty anti-meta, I'm not really worrying about contact anymore. I don't mind having a high Ks because I actually think there's a certain level that I can get to and can't get over. So, once I get fairly close to that, I'm playing with house money. Like, it's almost like I've edged off a piece of what negative outcomes I could be seeing, which I think is why I have fairly decent years in my full righty nerf part from my right-handers. I generally have a pretty good Hornsby with everything but average. I think he actually hit for this year. I do. I think having suck sponges will help certain players around them. They can be their own suck sponges in a way if you put them into bad situations, which, again, I know it defies logic. I know it defies reason, but it just seems to work. I don't know.
And when you say it just seems to work, are you deeming that working from its influence on your overall win-loss record, or are you deeming it's quote-unquote working because of the surrounding stat lines of those players that get to share a lineup with the sponges?
I definitely think it's that the players around them get to share the lineup with the sponge. And I also think it's a result of not having to rely on bats to win games. I don't rely on my bats to win games, but I actually tend to do like not disgustingly awful from an offensive perspective when it's all said and done at the end of the year. It's not just the D war, although that plays a pretty significant role into it. Yeah.
Very interesting. And I'm sure we'll hear more and more about the theories and the potential going forward. And you'll oftentimes share those in the Discord, and that's really the next thing I wanted to talk about. So oftentimes you bring your ideas, your thoughts, sometimes in long form prose, to the Discord, and honestly, you've ended up in some semi-heated exchanges about thoughts and opinions you've shared. Or oftentimes when there is a chat storm going on the Discord, you can be found within the middle of it. Why do you think you're a bit of a lightning rod for polarizing opinions on the Discord?
Well, I can tell you that they're for very valid reasons. If I'm pissing someone off, they're probably right in being pissed off. I know that sounds terrible, but like if I feel strongly on something, I'm not just going to yell over that they're wrong. I'm going to try and give the reason for why I think that I am right. Um, and I know that rubs a lot of people. And that's not just a Discord thing. That's not a video game thing. That's everything in life. The last thing anyone wants to hear is why freaking know it all thinks that he knows it all, believes that he's right. I could also do a much better job of what other people have to say rather than just, like you said, long form, writing a novel in Discord about why this is what it is. This is right. I'm not even going to argue that you're wrong. I'm just arguing that I'm right. And I think that that level of dismissiveness is also, it works against me with people in the Discord. I mean, I don't want people not to like me. It just kind of happens because that's who I am.
So when you do share your thoughts, and I totally believe your last answer, I think that's absolutely the spirit of your commentary is you just want to defend your assertions. You want to convey what you feel you've discovered in this or that. But could you just share a little bit more about where you're coming from when you do share your thoughts and really the spirit upon which you bring that level of communication and really honestly the investment to the Discord. You know, if someone just didn't care, you know, they'd meet some resistance on the Discord and then close it and walk away. You don't do that. Why not?
No. Wish I did. It'd be a whole lot cooler if I did, if I just shut up, chirped away. I think it started pretty early on. I actually thought there was I think there's a ton of good advice on Discord. I think that Discord helped me be a better player of the game. I think there's a whole lot of great advice on there. I do think there is some very self-serving advice on there sometimes. I think that, especially from a market perspective, there's some highly misleading information on there at times. And that's oftentimes where I'll really be willing to get it popping. I got into it. Another guy that I actually pretty decent now, but at the time, he just every time I'd say something, he'd have something else to say. But he was saying, you know, I think that this is what you're going to see from the Diamonds the rest of the time we're in the game, or the rest of FOTF. Well, I don't remember what the exact line was, but it was, you might as well buy the Diamonds now because they're not getting it. And I went into, like you said, long form prose about how that was a folly, and like he wanted to argue with me, and I didn't want to argue. I just wanted to continually hammer home my point. And it, you know, that doesn't really go over that real well with people. I don't remember what the original question is. I'm sitting here squawking, but yeah.
Yeah, I think what you're getting around at is it's just that you have conviction around
Absolutely.
your thoughts. You know, you feel as though you have a lot to offer the community and that your opinions are coming from an informed enough position to be able to offer them. And when you feel as though someone is offering assertions with regards to the market, which is kind of your playground, as an analogy I've overused in this interview, that you feel as though it's kind of your spot to jump in and offer your 2 cents as a counter opinion.
You know, I think I'd be doing better in life if I could do my babbling and you could just come in and kind of that babbling. I think that would be lovely because you're doing a great job. Yeah, no, that's pretty spot on. Yeah.
So let's shift a bit as we get towards the finale of the interview here and talk about the future. So you've got teams all over the place. We've talked about them over the course of this interview. You've got one in Perfect. You made the playoffs this week. You'll be back next looking to win a title there. You've got tons of science experiments living at various levels of the Perfect Team universe. What are the most important things to you to accomplish before this game cycle's over?
Okay. So one of the goals is spend a little less time on the game, kind of getting ready for 22 and the bear that I expect that to be on my time. For TWIP 100, ripping all of my alts to 0. I'm not going to leave like a NP. I think my goal was to make sure I had 26 on every team, and I mean at that point, if they get reported for 10 and they get ripping them to shreds, I don't care. As long as that doesn't, you know what, I need to ask if that impacts their ability to play in 22. But if it doesn't, yeah, I'm just going to rip shreds after TWIPT 1. I think Chris has some absolute heat in the can for TWIPT 100. So that's been like my burn down thing. My main had 1,039 packs that I inexplicably haven't ripped yet because everything's becoming less valuable. But hey, TWIPT 100, woo. I would like to win a Perfect League championship. Last week sucked bad. I had 2 chances.
Was that in 7? You went down in 7?
I went down in 7. I had a crack in 6, a crack in 7. One of the problems, you know what? If we were playing with this week's game style last week, I would have felt a lot. But it is what it is. Could not win a road game last year. Same story as this year. Just I'm not going to win games on there. Not what I'm trying to do. But yes, no, I definitely want to win a Perfect League championship. I would like to win a Heinsohn. I have not done that yet. I have not done a PTCS, but I think that's asking too much. Now we're getting wish listy as opposed to things I'd like to accomplish. But no, I think of the ones that I enter a whole lot. Oh, an SE Open because I just added those. I'd like to get an SE Open too, I guess. But I'd like to win one of the major disciplines, one of each of the major disciplines. That'd be fun. And then be less engaged and involved in the game for a couple of months. I think Thanksgiving to me seems like a good breakout time. We got a huge family, so coming around Christmas, probably not going to get much of me anyways. Content's done in January. So yeah, for me, this is a bit of a down period. And like my favorite thing to do is be on the auction house. There's nothing to do on the auction right now. Should OOTP find a way to reignite it? I mean, that'd be awesome. Yeah, I'd probably modify my plans, as geeky as that sounds. But yeah, no, I mean, those are really the big ones to me. At this point, I feel comfortable with what I've learned this year. I definitely think there's a whole lot for me to learn on the managerial side still. And I certainly hope to continue to do that, mainly talking with good people that care a lot about the game and do their best to better understand the game as much as they can. But yeah, I guess that's really it. Is now it's just chasing superlatives. That's terrible. That's terrible.
All right. Well, last question for you. And if we were wish listy before, we're getting even more wish listy now. So, what's the one thing above all else that you want to see implemented in PT22? And you've already used the whole use SEs as components for other missions, so don't reuse that one.
Okay. Well, that's too bad because that is absolutely number 1 on the list. But number 2, I mean, I've got a few things. Okay. I think that it would be really great if the content was actually a little more creep next year. We started with a bit of a power creep, and then we kind of hit this power plateau, and now like we're like crawling on all fours. The creep is just like so now. The upgrades on the cards are so minimal. Like Boggs is a great card, but I'm taking Trish Speaker, Roger Connor, Rogers Hornsby, one of those 3 guys off of my team, and I'll do it. I want more, just like a little upgrade. And in any of those situations, I think I sacrifice defense, which I'm not a big fan of. Anyways, I digress. wish list for 22. Okay. Don't implement any kind of limitations to people owning a certain number. So I get that not everybody likes flippers, but those cards will legit become quick sells for the major rippers. It's not like you're going to get your card cheaper, bro. They're just getting quick sold. Like every level that these people have to do, I don't think you understand how much you do. I don't think a lot of people out there, you've been around a couple serious rippers. You understand that like they have no time or desire to deal with what a flipper is willing to do. So I think limiting like ownership or of a number of cards, I think that would be really bad. So I want to see no change there. I would like the original pseudo to come back. Although I'm cool with the current one, and if they put up some more, that's fine. It's just going to make the margin bigger. But I would like to see it come back. I like the week on mission packable. I think that needs to be a thing. I think that needs to be a deal. I think that was really beneficial to the market, how steady that could be. Like people even then could tell you, hey, here's when you need to buy, here's when you need to sell. X cheaper now, you can expect card to cost you more because of X, all this crazy stuff. I like the mission and then the pack follow. That was really awesome. And I really, really hope get away from like true new content deep into it. I think that's really difficult. I think they almost pulled it off well with the postseason set. It just got a little key at the very end. It wasn't too bad. Boggs is tough. God, the Boggs is tough. And I want a Boggs. I run a lefty cheese park. But no, I'm sorry. I'm babbling again. The big things for me really have SEs component pieces. I know you told me not to use that. My other answers suck. Please just allow SEs component pieces retain some kind of. Please, I beg.
Sure. All right. Well, that's Pidge, and that's his interview for reading between the lineups. Any parting words here, Pidge, before we close things down?
Congrats to API series today. That's awesome. And no, that's all I got.
Well, I can echo those sentiments. API is a great guy. Congrats on winning the title. Very well deserved. And with that, conclude our interview with Pidge. And I'm back. So that was our interview with Pidge. I loved it. Real quick, before we do anything else, let's open our giveaway. So here on my streams, 3 people walk away with 10,000 perfect points each time. And so in a moment's notice, I'm going to open it up. And we're going to call it the Pidge Perfect Point Giveaway. And you will be entered into it by typing !ticket, and it is open. And tickets are flying off the shelves. Awesome. So while I let that run for a couple minutes, I just want to thank Pidge. I thought it was a great interview. I thought that he was very open, very candid. Really was not hiding behind any words and was happy to talk about a lot of things, even at one point saying that he's getting himself in trouble, which I don't necessarily agree with. I think he was within his bounds here. And I think that we also better understand now the spirit behind the fervor that he brings to debate on the Discord. And that was one of the big takeaways for me through that discussion. He's not a guy who's trying to one up in a conversation, not a guy trying to be the smartest guy in the room, but rather someone who just has deep conviction about his beliefs on what he's discovered, and just a cavalcade of data behind those discoveries to suggest that they might have legs, and he just really can't let that go without getting his 2 cents in. I was also surprised to learn of the extent of that dedication to the craft. Running all of these mirrored teams and doing so purely for the purpose of science, purely for the purpose of understanding nuance within the game, being able to run all these mirrored teams and monkey with one setting to try to get an edge and try to observe some phenomena within the game. I found that very interesting. All right, we'll go ahead and draw our drawing now. So we've got 36 people in there now, and we will close the drawing in 5 seconds. 3, 2, and 1. And we'll draw 3 winners. First winner is DC Cubs 44. Congrats to you. Second winner is Red Lady Nick. And last but not least is Waddy, who I believe is now a repeat winner. Let me know if I'm wrong on that, Waddy, but congrats to all of our winners tonight. And thank you for watching the stream. And now it's time to reveal. It's time to reveal, folks, who we're going to have next week. Who is going to be headlining Reading Between the Lineups next week? And it's none other than API, the Manchego Cheese, the most recent Perfect League champion, who was congratulated. That was the last, those were the parting words of Pidge. So we're going to have API on. We're going to talk about his recent championship. We're going to talk about DLL. We're going to talk about his work with models, regression models. If he wants to talk about other models, he's more than welcome to it. We're going to talk about his observed statistics, his tournament play. We'll get into it all. Very excited for that. If you're new to the stream, if you've never seen one of these before, please do click the follow. Please do click notifications so that you know when we go live in the future, and give consideration to subscribing. And we definitely had a lot of generosity in the chat today. Chuck, wait till next year. MacJack's dishing out subscriptions for other people. We had MacJack's Walnut Shifted giving out bits. So really appreciate it, guys. That really makes having seen this the stream supported as it is so very encouraging, and really keeps the fire and the passion behind it. So I thank you very much for that. Next show will be Thursday, when we go on right after Chris and we talk about the content that he just dropped this week. I believe is Hardware Heroes. So we're excited for that. Excited to see what comes of that. And with that, we're going to wrap it up. So thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time. This was the laundry basket that won someone 10,000 points today.